Hey everyone, welcome to Interactive English. My name's Wes. I almost forgot what I was going to say just for a second. This channel, it's all about just trying to help you practice and improve your English. If you are new here, I definitely want to hear from you. Write your name in the chat, or if you're watching this later, write your name in the comments. Tell me where you're from. Always love hearing from new people. Today's lesson is I'd say it's a little more of an advanced lesson, and what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about innuendos and trying to be able to understand them and identify innuendos. This is something that I think is more common just in general conversational English. It's pretty informal actually. So what I want to do is we'll teach you what this means. If somebody is going to make an innuendo, try to think about how you can identify them. And I'm going to give you a bunch of different examples to help you understand. So I hope that by the end of this lesson, you'll have a better understanding of what an innuendo is and when people might be making them and when you might hear them if you're watching a TV show or a movie. Before we jump into it, I just want to give a quick hello to so many members, patrons here. Hello, Lali, Takayo, good to see you. Yasher, welcome. Ali, Madi, Jacqueline, Amiable, Language Learner, AMS, Anna, great to have you guys here. Nekla, how are you? Good to see so many familiar faces. Sleepwalker. As we go through this, again, I'm going to maybe ask you guys some questions, and you guys, again, can put your answers in the chat. If you do have some questions, I may try to get to them as we go through this. But let's begin just talking about, well, what is an innuendo? And right here, I'm giving you the definition. This is from Cambridge Dictionary. I'm going to give you a couple of them, and hopefully it'll help you understand what it is. So I'll just read this. It says, "What are innuendos? The making of a remark or remarks that suggest something sexual or something unpleasant, but do not refer to it directly." So you're making a remark or you're saying a comment, and what you say, you're not speaking directly about this thing. You're saying it indirectly, and it's kind of you're suggesting something, you're insinuating it. It could be something sexual, it could be something unpleasant. So innuendos typically are not a good thing. Sometimes people might say them to be mean. Sometimes they might say them trying to be funny. And again, I'll give you some examples. And I'm sure that even if you don't really know what an innuendo is, I'm guessing that you have come across it. And maybe you did not know that you were coming across it, but that is when I'm going to give you some of these examples. So let me give you another meaning of innuendo. This is from Cambridge Dictionary. I like using Cambridge. Here, this is from Collins. I like this meaning as well, which is why I've put it up here. An innuendo is an indirect remark, gesture, or reference, usually implying something derogatory and insinuation. Derogatory is just something that's not nice, something that's mean. So again, we're talking about a comment that somebody might say, or maybe they make a gesture, or they do something to imply something mean or rude, and they're insinuating something. And again, sometimes it can definitely be sexual. So let me give you guys let's get into the example part of this. So one way to identify an innuendo right there, this phrase right here, sometimes, not always, but sometimes people will say, "Oh, you know what I mean? You know what I mean?" And when they do this, typically they'll say the innuendo, and then maybe they'll ask that question like, "Oh, you know what I mean?" And in this case, it's a rhetorical question, which a rhetorical question is, it's a question you're not supposed to answer. And this way, again, they're kind of asking you, they say the innuendo. They're not saying it directly, and they're asking like, "Oh, do you understand what I'm talking about? You know what I mean?" So for example, here is this, I found a way to get some extra help on tomorrow's exam. You know what I mean? So right now, again, think about that situation. What do you think the person is trying to insinuate? What are they trying to imply? Again, I told you innuendos, it's not typically a good thing, but maybe you and I, we're having this conversation, and I say this to you, and I say, wow, hey, I found a way to get some extra help on tomorrow's exam. You know what I mean? So what do you think? What do you think this innuendo is referring to? I'm not directly saying it. I'm saying it indirectly. What do you guys think? Let me know. Yeah, okay. Pulkit. Sorry, I've mispronounced names. Nilma, Lali. Yeah. So again, I put the quotes there. Extra help. That should also tell you when people use those air quotes, or maybe in conversation, what they'll do is they'll kind of emphasize that, like, oh, I found a way to get some extra help on tomorrow's exam. You know what I mean? So again, that air quotes is also an identifier saying that you know, something, you should focus on this. It's not what I'm trying to say. So like you guys just mentioned, excellent in the chat, they're talking about cheating. So there would be this picture to show you what's going on. So if somebody's talking about extra help on tomorrow's exam, you know what I mean? They're really implying that they have found a way to cheat on the exam, or you're doing something unethical. So in this case, you're not really saying something mean, but you're saying something that, well, it's wrong. You're going to do something wrong. This person is going to cheat. And again, that, you know what I mean, is one way to identify that somebody, maybe they just said an innuendo. Here's another example. Dave has been spending a lot of time with Kim, if you know what I mean. So remember in the first one, the identifier, I gave you the question, like, you know what I mean. Somebody might ask it as a question. They may also include it in this statement right here, if you know what I mean. That's another way that people would ask this. They'll say the innuendo, and then they'll add, if you know what I mean. And again, that's one way to identify that somebody is saying an innuendo. All right. So again, in this case, in this situation, what do you think is the innuendo? What if I tell you this? What am I trying to insinuate? What am I implying? Dave has been spending a lot of time with Kim, if you know what I mean. Sometimes people would say it like with a kind of a childish smile. Okay, what do you think? Please say my name. Fatin, there you go. Yes, Suhana, Henry, Nilma, Sleepwalker. Yeah, you guys get the idea. In this case, Dave and Kim are spending a lot of time together. They're getting friendly. Perhaps maybe they like each other. They're going to get romantically involved. Excellent. I like it. Dabisash. Hanky-panky. Yeah, maybe there's a little hanky-panky going on. Some romance. And yes, I put the kiss there as something to say that you're implying that there is some type of romantic relationship going on with Dave or Kim, or maybe the situation that Dave really loves Kim, or Kim really loves Dave, or they both just love each other, and they're spending a little time with each other, if you know what I mean. So again, this kind of leads us into the notion of sexual innuendos, because I would say this is actually a collocation. When you're talking about innuendos, often people are making some type of sexual innuendo, referencing something that is romantic, all the way to referencing something that is really lewd and inappropriate and maybe even disgusting. So sexual innuendos can come across a wide spectrum. But again, typically people would use them, either you could use them to be demeaning and offensive, and you could also maybe use them to be funny or humorous. Sometimes, again, depending on the situation, the context, like I said, it could be highly inappropriate, or perhaps it could be just a little bit of humorous. In this case, this is not something that I think is really scandalous or something. Perhaps people are gossiping. Oh, Dave has been spending a lot of time with Kim, if you know what I mean. Let me give you another example. I love this example. Okay, I love this example. When I've taught innuendos before. I've used this. It's perfect, okay? And it's an example of a sexual innuendo. So here is an article. It's actually a real article. And I'll read it. And it's full of, well, innuendo. So here is the article, and we're going to follow up on this. So it says, "Congratulations, George Brownridge, for pleasing 15 women for an entire day. We were all exhausted and very satisfied, and we look forward to next year. We all thank you." And you see a picture. There's George right there. Big smile on his face. Now, I'm sure when you read that article, like I just said, something probably comes to mind. Like you're like, wow, that's a little crazy, a little interesting. This is a real article. And I'll show you why I know this, that it is a real article. So again, if you're just joining us, we're talking about innuendos, identifying them, trying to understand them. And this is not something that I'm telling you you should try to use innuendos in conversation. Really depends on the situation. But this is something that you will hear, especially on like TV or in TV shows or movies. It's something that happens. So in this case, George Brownridge, for pleasing 15 women for an entire day. We were all exhausted and very satisfied. We look forward to next year. We all thank you. The reason why I said that this is real, because this was in the newspaper, and then later on the newspaper had to issue an apology, and they put up this apology message right here: "Our sincere apology to George Brownridge and staff. Our intentions were to thank him for a generous holiday shopping trip which he arranged. This annual tradition is much appreciated. Any inappropriate innuendos were unintentional, and we take full responsibility for the ad that appeared in yesterday's paper." So, of course, when somebody read that article, the first one that I just showed you, it seems very strange, pretty inappropriate. And I think when people read that, they were laughing, they saw that, and that's why the next day the paper had to come out with this apology saying like, we did not mean to say that. We're talking about a shopping trip that this guy, I guess he might be the boss of the company, George Brownridge, arranged for his staff of employees. But again, if you look at the innuendo, let's look at the innuendos from the original article, where they're talking about, this is where it gets a little confusing, for pleasing 15 women. So if you're pleasing somebody, it makes somebody happy, but also pleasing somebody is also used sexually, like after when talking about sex. And somebody is pleased, they're happy, they're satisfied. So this is a verb to please someone that can be used in that context. So again, it's an innuendo. It makes people think of something else, like George, wow, 15 women. And again, it does not help that somebody says we were all exhausted, they were very tired, and they were very satisfied. Again, also words that somebody may think of something sexual was happening, and that happened for the entire day. Now, what I do think could happen, I think maybe somebody at the newspaper, perhaps it was somebody young and immature, and they wrote this intentionally, trying to be funny, and maybe somebody got upset, and because of that, they had to issue an apology. So again, maybe it was an accident, maybe it was not an accident, but this is a great example of an innuendo, where you're saying something not directly, but it makes you think that something sexual was going on. Yes, it definitely makes me think, Angela, that this guy, George Brownridge, is definitely a playboy. So again, I like this example when trying to teach innuendos, because typically innuendos, it could be an accident, but I think often they're not really accidents. You're trying to say them to be funny, or again, maybe people say them to be offensive and demeaning. The other examples that I want to give you to help you understand, and I told you before at the beginning that you have probably, if you watch TV shows or movies, you have probably encountered or heard a lot of different innuendos. Maybe you were able to identify them and understand them, maybe not. The reason why I say they're pretty popular is because you find them in movies all the time, especially children's movies. And you might think that's a little strange because you're talking about, wait a second, children's movies, they're meant for children. Why would you put a sexual innuendo in a children's movie? And I put these companies up here, like whether it's Disney or DreamWorks, Columbia, 20th Century Fox, Pixar. I think the reason why they do this is because they want to make movies entertaining for everyone. It's meant for children, but I think companies might feel comfortable putting an innuendo in there because many of the children are not going to understand. And the adults will understand the innuendo, and for them, maybe they think it's funny, and therefore then the movie is entertaining for everyone. It's good for children, it's good for adults, and typically these sexual innuendos that they put in there, they're not like meant to be like really offensive or demeaning. They try to put them in there maybe a little innocent, but again, an adult would pick up on this. They would understand the reference, the innuendo, and they would then enjoy the movie as well. So let me give you some examples of innuendos that you would find in some of these movies for children. So the first one is from the movie Aladdin. And in one part of Aladdin, the quote is down there. He says, "I thought the earth wasn't supposed to move until the honeymoon." All right, so what do you think? What do you guys think that he's referring to? Saying, I thought the earth wasn't supposed to move until the honeymoon. If you're not sure, so in this situation, I guess the earth is shaking and moving. A honeymoon is talking about after a couple gets married. They get married and then they go on their honeymoon. Typically a honeymoon, people would travel to some nice location. It's kind of like a vacation, but it's a vacation for newlyweds. When people get married, they go on their honeymoon. So they're talking about when people would go on their honeymoon. Sometimes, I don't know, nowadays it really just depends. That's when people would consummate the marriage and the couple would have sex. And that's what it's referring to, is that this newlywed couple having sex and the earth is shaking. So again, this is an example of a sexual innuendo in the movie Aladdin, which is a Disney movie. And again, it's a movie that's meant for children. And again, I think if a child were to hear that, they probably wouldn't get it. When they're saying, oh, I thought the earth wasn't supposed to shake and move until the honeymoon. They're trying to be funny, and adults might find this humorous. Another example, this one is from Toy Story, which I think I think it's Pixar. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. So in this situation, I've given you the situation down here. Buzz Lightyear, one of the main characters in the movie Toy Story. In this part of the movie, I guess he sees the cowgirl, Jessie, another main character in the movie. And when he sees her, the wings pop up on the side. And that, again, is another sexual innuendo. In this case, it's not something he says. Remember, the Collins dictionary mentioned that an innuendo could be a remark, like a comment, but it could also be a gesture. So this is more of a gesture, that the wings pop up, and what that's telling the viewer, again, that Buzz Lightyear, he's excited. He's getting aroused. He is attracted to Jessie, the cowgirl. That he sees her and he's like, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. She's so amazing. And his wings pop up. So again, this is another example of a gesture that children probably would not pick up on. But adults, when they see this, they think it's funny. They think it's humorous. And therefore, again, maybe the movie might be a little... maybe more enjoyable for an adult, that these movies are both for children and for adults. And typically a lot of these movies, yeah, you can find quite a few sexual innuendos in these movies. So yes, they are referring to, like I said, Yashar, Anna, Henry, yes, like an erection, that Buzz Lightyear is getting excited. He's very much in love with Jessie the cowgirl. Then we have, here's another example. So again, I hope this makes it a little easier for you to understand. And I told you, if you're watching TV shows or movies, you will come across these quite often, not just in kids' movies, but just in general, sitcoms, anything you might be watching. This is from the movie Cars. And the situation is Lightning McQueen gets flashed by two enthusiastic fans who beam their headlights at her. So I haven't seen this movie. I don't know who makes the movie Cars. Not sure if that might be DreamWorks. But in this case, again, so Lightning McQueen, I think, is a very famous car. And these other two cars that you see in that picture are flashing their lights. McQueen's very famous. They're flashing their lights. They're fans. So you know they're fans. So the innuendo is, again, they're flashing their lights. You would need to know what the meaning of to flash someone is. So again, adults would see this and they would think, oh, this is funny. So right now I would tell you, do you know what it means to flash? If you're saying that it's an informal phrase, flashing is when a woman would lift up her shirt and reveal her breast to either a group of people or maybe one other person. Typically it might be done in a car. You're driving past the car and the woman would lift up her shirt. That is called flashing. So if you didn't know that, maybe you learned some new expression today, to flash someone. It's very informal. But in this case, again, they're making that reference, that innuendo, that they're flashing their headlights. So that's what they're going with, to flash, like they're lifting up their shirt and revealing their breast, in this case, the two headlights. So again, this is another example of a sexual innuendo. I don't think children are going to pick up on that, but adults would, and they would maybe think it's funny or humorous. Let's look at the next one. I got another example from Frozen, okay? So I think this is a very popular movie, very common movie. I'm going to get this wrong probably. You guys, how do you not know? Frozen. Frozen is Disney? I think Frozen. Is Frozen Disney? Yes. Okay, yes. All right, my wife just clarified. Yes, Frozen, Disney. And in this situation, you have Kristoff and Anna. That Anna is talking about her fiance, Hans. And they just met. And Kristoff is saying, like, really, do you really know this guy? You just got engaged after one day. You don't really know him. So he's quizzing her on how much she knows about him. And he's asking these questions like, oh, what's his favorite food? What color are his eyes? And then he asks her about like how big are his feet? And she answers like, foot size doesn't matter. That is another sexual innuendo, like, oh, like what's his foot size? And she's like, oh, foot size doesn't matter. Again, it's a sexual innuendo in reference to the size of his you-know-what. All right? I don't need to tell you, but it's referencing, again, the size, and she's saying, like, oh, size doesn't matter. Size is not important. So, again, it's a sexual innuendo in reference to Hans's you-know-what, but again, the way that they do this in this situation where they're talking back and forth, and he says, what about foot size? She's like, oh, foot size doesn't matter. Adults are going to pick up on that, and it's funny. It is humorous. If you actually go and watch this clip in the movie, I think you could type in, like on YouTube, Frozen, foot size, and you'd be able to watch this clip where he's quizzing her, and it's funny. But children are not going to pick up on this. This is it's a very subtle sexual innuendo. And that's what I would say in these movies that are meant for children. You're going to find a lot of them, but they're very subtle. So I hope that you guys were able to follow and understand the different innuendos that we just went through, because I think this is good for your comprehension. I told you, in movies and TV shows, you're going to hear this a lot. One thing to keep an eye out for would be that phrase, if somebody does ask, you know what I mean? Then typically they just said some type of innuendo. Maybe it was offensive, maybe it was inappropriate, perhaps they were trying to be funny, and they say, oh, you know what I mean? So I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson on innuendos. I want to do more on this. Maybe I will follow up and talk about innuendos in a future lesson, because I think they're fun. It's very important. It's about, well, I don't say very important, but it's more like conversational English, but also a bit cultural as well, because you learn about culture and typically what people might think is funny or humorous, or how people try to be funny or humorous. So If you guys did like the lesson, please hit that like button. While you guys are here, please go ahead and hit that like button. I really appreciate it. If you want to even go a step further, show us a little love and support. Down below in the description, there are links if you want to become a YouTube member or a patron. It was great seeing so many members in these live lessons. Takayo, Lolly, so many people. Vicky, good to see you. When I said Stefan was right. Excellent, excellent. It's good. Be able to identify these. Great to see so many members and patrons here. It does help support what we do if you guys want to show us a little love. But again, I think this is something I do want to follow up on in the future because I think these lessons, from what I hear from you guys, I think you find them interesting. And I told you, if you're watching even a TV show like Friends, they are going to use innuendos because mostly to be funny in that situation. So keep that in mind for your listening. Again, I don't expect you guys to try and go out and just start saying innuendos left and right. But it's definitely good for your comprehension. And then the more if you can easily identify these innuendos and you really understand them, then I think that's when you could go out and perhaps try to use them in your conversations as well. And if you want, you could follow it with that, yeah, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? They've been spending a lot of time together, if you know what I mean. All right, so thank you guys for joining me. Give out some shout outs. Ametni, Regina, Lolly, Pulkit, good to see you guys. Suhana, I can't pronounce your name, Giovanni. Yashar, Mehmet, Madi, hello, Marcio, Takayo, thanks for joining us. Nisa, Zenat, Kayan, can't pronounce it, sorry. Oksana, hope you guys learned something new. Maria Teresa, hi, I just saw you, excellent. I hope you learned something new. I hope this was easy to understand and follow. And again, maybe I think in the future, I'll try to follow up with another lesson talking about innuendos. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And